Hi there, welcome to this last video in a series of 3 videos where we've been looking at covering our balsa models with heat shrink covering film. Now in the first video we looked at the tools that are needed and the preparation of the balsa model before we start covering it, and that applied to whether it's a wing like this or a fuselage or any kind of structure if it's a balsa model. Now in the second video we looked at covering this wing in a single colour, and we're using Orocover, which is a really nice covering material. We looked at not only the positioning and how to shrink it, but also how to get it around difficult wing tips, and you see this is covered really nicely. Now in this video we're going to be doing the top of the wing, and we're going to be doing a design comprised of 2 different colours and made up of kind of 3 sections really, and it's made a little bit more difficult by the fact that the join between the film is going to be over some of the open structure, which can make it a little bit tricky. Now the first thing we need to do is kind of think upon a design that we want to create on this wing, and I've kind of drawn out a simple design. And this is a flying wing, so we've got a centre line here and we've got 2 halves that are going to be identical. So just talking about the one half of the wing and to start with, and I've just drawn that out how it's going to be, just roughly to try and get an idea, and I'll just bring that in, and you can see we've got the wing, we've got the elevon, and we've got black along the bottom, black along the top, and a band of yellow that sweeps down. And if we have a look at that on the wing, so essentially we're going to be covering one side at a time, and as I said, we're going to have quite a broad yellow stripe, this cub yellow, that's going to come right the way along the centre and then shoot down there, dive down and off the end of the wing. We're going to have black on the top that then follows that down here at an angle, and similarly we're going to have black along the bottom and will angle down. So I think that would be quite a nice design and quite eye-catching, and I think for a flying wing I've got the black on the underside, which will be really visible to see it when it's flying, but when it curves round and when it's upside down you get a lovely flash of yellow. So it should be quite easy, hopefully, to distinguish which way up the wing is. And when I'm flying a flying wing like this, I mean, these are really fast, manoeuvrable, responsive. I need all the help I can get as to the orientation of this wing. But anyway, so we've kind of come upon a design, and I've drawn up some templates, or cut out some templates to start with, so I can actually make sure I know how it fits on the wing, and I can cut the film to measure, to fit. So we'll have a look at that now. Okay, so in putting this design together, I've done the yellow band first. I always find it really helpful when I'm doing a kind of a composite design to make templates, because at the end of the day we've not only got to do this side, but we've got to do the other side, and we want them to be identical, we want them to match. Now the centre line of the wing is just on the side of the engine bearers here, so if we line that up with the centre line, and essentially that is going to be our yellow band down the middle of the wing. Now we've got also drawn on this a 10mm overlap for the join, so essentially the visible bit will be inside these lines here, and that 10mm there, 10mm there, like I say, is the overlap. So we have that in yellow. We then have the black piece that's going to go on like that, and then we have another black piece that will go on the top like that, and I think that will be really quite nice and striking. Now it's important that we put the black on top of the yellow. The black being the more dominant colour, will hide the yellow underneath, so we won't see the black shining through. If we were to do it the other way around and we were to put the yellow on top of the black, it would affect the yellow. You would see the yellow, the black coming through the yellow, and it wouldn't look as nice. So the darker colour always goes over the top of the lighter colour. Now this, we could put these pieces on separately, so we could put that on, we could then come along with our piece of black and put the black on like that. But if we do that, it's fine on this sheeted area, we can put pressure on the iron, get those joints nice. But when we come to open structures like this, my experience in the past has been that it's very hard to put that on and then get decent pressure on those open structures to actually get a good solid join that isn't moving when you put the pressure on, and you don't end up with such neat joins, seams should I say, between the two. And also the same here, we've got a bit of open structure there, which to be honest is quite a small piece and we could risk it, but I think far better that we actually join that before we put any of this on the wing. So we're going to make this up as a single piece of covering film, and then we're going to apply the whole lot on the wing in one go, and I'll show you how we're going to do that, and we'll go through the process. All through these covering videos I've said about the importance of knowing the temperature of your iron and how your covering material responds to that temperature. And in this next exercise, it is absolutely vital that we understand what temperature we've got on the iron and how the film responds. Now, this film Orocover, I know how it responds, but you might, and you'll see the temperatures that I use, but you need to test this with any covering film that you use, because different covering films respond differently. So now what we want to do is we want to stick this black film on top of the yellow film, and we need to do that with no shrinkage, absolutely no shrinkage at all. We want to just heat it enough to melt the glue, but as I said, not to shrink the film. If we start to shrink and distort the film, then we're going to have big trouble when we try to put it on the wing. But we can melt the glue and stick it without. Now I've got this at my iron at 100 degrees C, and that's the coolest that this iron will go. And so we're going to try this with that iron. We've got about a 10mm half-inch overlap there. And I'm not going to run the iron along because that will create a bit of a wave and a wrinkle. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just put the iron down and just smooth it to the side. There we go. And what we need to try and do is avoid getting bubbles. You won't do this bubble free, and if you get a bubble, we can just prick it with a pin. There we go. We're just very carefully putting this down. Now we can slide it, now it's stuck a little bit, and we'll just make sure that we have that really nicely stuck down. And there are no bubbles, actually I say there are no bubbles, there's one just there which I could probably work, it's right close to the edge and we could probably work that out. But anyway, you can see that now has stuck together really well, and if we take it off the wax paper, it hasn't stuck at all, and yet that is really strong. And in the past when I've pulled that, I've actually ripped the film rather than pulling the joint apart. So this is what we're going to do with our bigger pieces of covering film before we put them on. Now, okay, so we're just at over 140 degrees C now, and we'll see what this join's like. So we've set it up exactly the same. And you can see actually this is shrinking this, and it's leaving creases all around the place. Right, now that has actually shrunk all of this area where the iron's been, and it's left this bit a little bit baggy, and over a biggish area where we're trying to do that, we are not going to get a very good join. So hopefully you can see that the benefits of knowing the temperature of your iron and how it responds to the film. And you can see this 100 degrees C, there's absolutely no effect of the heat on the covering material as compared to this one, and yet the glue is stuck and we have a really good tight neat seam. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut out those pieces of the template on film, and then we'll have a look at joining these before we put them on the wing. Okay, I've now cut my 3 pieces of film from my template. So we've got the top section, we've got the central section, and we've got this bottom section. You can see how this yellow sweeps down. Now I'm going to start ironing this on, but we need to line it up first. And just to show you what I've done, I've removed the yellow has still got all of the wax backing paper on it. I haven't touched that at all, and even though I've got everything on an extra piece of wax paper here. But what I have done is on the black, which is going to go on top, I've taken off enough of the wax paper to allow it to go onto the yellow with a 10mm overlap. There's a little bit more than that, hence I've got this backing paper here on the bench so I don't stick it to the bench. So if we put that one piece aside and we do this bottom piece first. Now again, you can see I've cut off a bit of the wax backing. Now it's probably going to take me about 5 or 10 minutes to get this in the right place, because essentially to line this up now, I'm feeling for the overlap where the yellow ends, and I'm measuring that, and basically I'm trying to get this whole overlap, this seam, 10mm to make sure it's in the right place. So 10mm all down this side. At the moment it's about 12mm, and this is about 11. So I need to fiddle around and get this right while my iron is coming up to temperature 100 degrees, as I said, 100 degrees C, and then we'll start to get this ironed. Right, actually that wasn't too bad to get into place, so I'm quite happy it's in the right place now, and I'm just using my nail, I'm sliding it up until I hit where the yellow is, and then measuring from my nail to the edge, and I've got that 10mm all the way around now, and I'm quite happy with how that is. Now the iron is just reaching temperature, it's 102 at the minute, so I'm just waiting for it to cool down a little bit and make sure that is dead on 100. I'm going to start here, which is kind of a central point and a key point, so I'm going to stick that, and then I will probably work my way down here and then work my way along there. I think it's better than starting at one end and finding actually it kind of shifts a little bit as you go, and you find you lose that kind of 10mm all the way around. So it's 101, so we'll risk it, and I think to try and get this without bubbles is to just try and work to the outside really. And just smoothing it down with your finger as you go. Surprising how warming it up and then smoothing it with your finger makes quite a nice seam, make a big difference. And actually there are no bubbles in that bit yet, so we'll keep going, and fingers crossed we get this done right. Just zoom in a little bit. I think it's quite a difficult colour, this black, to actually see what it's what's happening. So you can see I'm just smoothing this with my fingers to make sure that we're all on track with this. Okay, I thought it was worth a quick look at this before I start ironing it. I've got this second piece, which is the, yep, this is the top, the leading edge here, trailing edge. Top piece lined up, and again, just got the nail sliding up till I hit the edge of the yellow and measure that. And that is 10mm now all the way around. So again, 100 degrees, and I'm going to start at this point and work my way along like I did before. Right, well, I now have my finished wing panel, and you can just see the back, how it looks there with the bits of wax paper cut off, but we still have wax paper over most of it, just removed where the seams were. And that has gone really nice, and we can see how that is going to fit on the wing. What we need to do now is I just need to trim up this central section, decide how far across it's going to come, because we are going to end up with a seam down the middle, and when we put the two sides on, we need to make sure that lines up really sweet on that yellow and black lines, or it's going to look a bit odd. But I will get that trimmed up, and then I think we need to start getting this covering on, and I'm really looking forward to getting it on. It's gone on, I mean, that is lovely and flat. It hasn't shrunk any of the covering film. We've just got those nice tight glued seams, so it should go on really sweet. Right, I've now got this held in place, and I've held it in place here with some Scotch Magic tape, and also around the leading edge, just to make sure that it's lined up nicely. And it's really important to get this line between the yellow and the black in a dead straight line with the other side of the wing. And to do that, I've used a metre long ruler, and I'm just using that to put on the back of the sheeting here, and to make sure that lines up really nicely with that, which it does. So I'm quite pleased now I've got that in the right place. I've also trimmed it just around this front edge, so we're all ready to start sticking this on now. Now I'm just waiting for my iron to come up to temperature. I'm probably going to put this on just around about 100 degrees C, maybe just a little bit higher than that, but I just want to stick it on for the moment without shrinking it. And the critical thing about this now is this line. We need to make 100% sure that we get this nice and straight and in line with this section here, so that it looks right when it's finished. So I'm going to tack here, I'm going to pull this along, I'm going to tack it here, and I will probably tack it at the end, and then I will bring it down to this end here and make sure that that is on nice and square, and then I will work my way around just the same as I did with the underside when I did just the black. It'll go on just the same now. We'll have to be a little bit careful around the wingtip with this seam, but like I say, it'll go on exactly the same. So it's up to 105 degrees now, so I'm just going to tack that here, and I'll just come along here and make sure that is right. Still on the sheeting just here. Now before we do too much here, I mean, we can peel this off if necessary, but I would rather not. Now I'm just going to pull this bit. I think actually I'll do the centre here first, just pull that tight. Now we've got that in line. In fact, I think now I've tacked that, I will get my long ruler again and just make 100% sure, because that is the most critical thing at this stage. Yes, that is lovely and in line. So we can now get on with this, and just in the same way as we did the underside, here my ruler's clanking in the background, we're going to just tack that there. There we go. And now I will probably, yeah, I'll check this end, I think. And then we will tack this end. Okay, that's a little bit more stable now and a bit more comfortable. I've got it wedged underneath with a towel. I've got a towel there, and I can get to this end, which is now the critical piece that we need to do, just to make sure that we're going to get this on nice and square. And I'm just going to tack it down to this cap strip here, or this, actually I think that was the trailing edge I just stuck it to, yeah. So, there we go. And now I'm quite happy that that has gone on nice and square. So I'm just going to pull this gently and stick this down to the cap strip. So now we've got all of this end done. There we go. I'm not going to touch the wingtip at the moment, I don't think. I am going to just lift this up a little bit, and I'm just going to go along this trailing edge now and just make sure that this is stuck down. Okay, well now we've got that on nice and square. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go around and do the rest of this, make sure it's all stuck down lovely, this leading edge, and then we'll come back and we'll have a quick look at the wingtip. I'm not going to show this in detail like I did when I did the underside, because I'm just covering stuff that I've already done, and if you want to see that, hopefully you've seen the video before this, which was showing the basic laying out, which is exactly the same. So I'll get on and get all this stuck down now. Actually, it is worth saying that I've just stuck all this back edge, I've just stuck it down along the aileron bay here, and now I'm going to turn it over just the same way as I did with the underside. And is that in camera? Yeah. And now I'm going to go along with a really sharp scalpel, and I'm just going to trim that. And we need to be really careful here that we don't take it through the covering that we've already got on. Got all this leading edge stuck down nicely. It still wants a bit more heat just to shrink it, tighten it up, make it look a little bit better. But it's all stuck around now. But what I haven't done is the leading edge, and I thought we'd just have a quick look at that. If I turn that around, we can see I haven't stuck this down yet. You can still see the bare balsa there. And now this is going to wrap round, and it's going to be downwind. So the wind pressing against that will press that seam shut. And I've left that till last because I wanted to make sure that this was all smooth. And if I did this bit first, I might end up with a difficult wrinkle here. So I've got that now to do, which will be really nice and easy to do. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start in the middle, and I'm just going to roll that down like that, and I'm going to work out from that point. Now if you're not careful, you can get some wrinkles in here and bubbles, which are quite difficult to get out, because film sticking on film is a lot harder to shrink and to get bubbles out than when it's on balsa. So that's why I've kind of left it till last, to make sure that we've got this absolutely right. There we go, and you can see that's going on really nice. I know it's kind of difficult to see with this black covering, but it is. That's looking really nice. So I'll get the ends finished, and then I'll have a look at the tip, the wing tip. Okay, so we're going to do the wingtip, and we're going to do this exactly the same as we did the wingtip on the underside. The wingtip's right, identical top and bottom. Now, I'm not going to show all of this, but I'll just go through the concept. This won't pull round nicely because there is too much material here that it starts to wrinkle. So we can pull this here, and we can get that quite nice so it will shrink. This if we start to pull this round, we end up with a big lump of film here. So what we're going to do, as we did with the underside, is we're going to pull this back, and we're going to pull that back, and we're going to pull that back, and we're going to essentially spread out this excess material here all the way along in wrinkles, and that will allow us to shrink all those little wrinkles to get out everything and to make this nice and taut and finished. If we do this right, we will never get out that big wrinkle, however much we try to shrink it. So we just need, it's a little bit of a gamble, and really you need to start off at this end and work out what you can get away with on the front, what you can shrink and stretch, and then just work your way along. Like I say, I've gone through this whole procedure on the underside, so hopefully you've seen that video, and I'm not going to go through it and cover it now because I'm just repeating myself. Okay, you can see now how I've just tacked this all along this edge here, and you can see these wrinkles are pulled back like this because I've pulled some of the material back to reduce that excess at that end. And now these are all fairly small wrinkles that are going to come out with a little bit of heat. I'm quite confident about that. So what I'm going to do, I'm on a 108 degrees at the moment, just sticking this on, and I'm going to bump the temperature right up to about 150, I think, to stretch this around here and just shrink that on that edge. And now I'm going to work my way that way, just after I've stretched that, just stretching it a little bit and shrinking it to fit, and I think that will come out really nice. We have to be careful of shrinking too powerfully around the seams, because I don't think we'll pull these apart, but we need to be really careful, particularly if the heat is on the seam and we're softening the glue. Best thing to do is not to touch the seam, but to go either side. Right, well, I've now got that side of the wing finished, and I am really pleased with how that's looking. I think it looks fantastic, and the wingtip has shrunk lovely. We've got no wrinkles left in there or anything, so really pleased with how that's gone. Now, as I said earlier, I shrank all of this, fitted the wingtip exactly the same as I did in the video where I did the underside. So if you haven't seen that, check it out. What I will say is that I've shrunk all of this except for this last panel. And the reason I haven't done this is because I now need to make up the panel, the combined panel for this side, and I need to make sure that I line up really nice and neatly with these two lines, or it's going to look a little bit weird. If I shrink this and then line up a panel that hasn't been shrunk, when I shrink this, it's probably going to be too small. So better to leave this unshrunk, and then the panel I'm lining up and making sure is right will be unshrunk, and I'll shrink them together. I don't know how much linearly this will shrink and alter those lines, but I think better to leave it for now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the other panel made up, and I'll get that on, and we'll have a look at that process as I go. Right, well, I've now got this second kind of composite panel made up, and it's lines up really nicely with the one on the left side, these joins here between the black and the yellow. So what I've got to do now is just make sure that not only I line these up when I stick it on, and I obviously need to trim off the excess black, but I want to get it symmetrical. So I'm going to measure from this tip here to the edge of the cap strip, and the same here. It's about 23 mil. So as long as I get that distance right, and I get this nice and straight, we should be on a roll. So, and I will obviously stick these edges first because I really don't want those to move, and then I will probably work my way along. We'll see how it goes anyway. Okay, just one final comment before I get this done. I've got it all lined up now. I've got it trimmed at the front. I've got these joins lined up, but if I'm owning up, I found out that when I came to line these up really precisely with tape, pulling them, there was about maybe a millimetre difference between the two. So what I've done is I've lined up and stuck with tape the lines, the joins, so they are exactly right, and I've left a little bit of bag there. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to shrink this without sticking it to the other film. I'm just going to shrink this first, and it will just take out that extra little bit of bag there, that extra millimetre that we don't want, and it will fit perfectly then, hopefully. Famous last words. But this is all lined up now, so I'll get it done. But I just thought I'd mention that because I tried really hard to get those the same distance, but I still ended up with just a little, this new one, the latest one, just very slightly wider. But we can soon, like I say, take the bag out by just shrinking it, as long as we get the joints right. Well, I have now got this covered, and if I'm perfectly honest, I still, even though I've done loads and loads of coverings, I still find it quite nerve-wracking as you get towards the end of a model like this, because the stakes get higher if you mess it up. But it is so exciting to get this done, and you can see that has gone on really, really nice, which was the end we just did. We just did this end, and the wingtip has gone really nice, and it's all shrunk, and we've got these seams lovely and joined up. And if we look at it, hopefully you can see that is a lovely straight line. It's still a little bit wrinkly in the middle here because I've got a hatch to cut, I've got holes to cut for the servo and for the two fins, but essentially the covering has gone on really, really nice. So I hope you've found this a useful video. I do apologise at the length. I would prefer to make these videos shorter, but with a technique like this, I think it's quite important, if you haven't done it before, to include all the steps and as much detail as possible. So like I say, I hope you found it useful. And just to say, I've still got the elevons to do, which will be black and yellow, tying in with this. But compared to the covering here and also the underside, doing the elevons and the fins are quite an easy process, so I'm not going to cover those. But anyway, draw this to a close now, and like I say, I hope you found it useful and interesting. Thanks very much for watching.